If love was simple, perhaps life would be kinder. But nothing about my feelings for Capitu was simple. They consumed me, like the tide swallowing the shore, pulling me deeper with each passing day. We began to talk about the future more often, not in grand, sweeping terms, but in quiet moments, stolen between the duties of our daily lives. Capitu would speak of a house by the sea, a garden filled with flowers, a life free from the whispers of neighbors and the watchful eyes of my mother. Clung to her words, even as doubt crept into my mind. Could we truly build a life together? Would the world ever let us? My mother, ever vigilant, seemed to sense the shift between us. She began to ask more questions, her tone light, but her meaning unmistakable. "What did you and Capitu talk about today?" she would ask as I sat at the dinner table. "Nothing important," I would reply, though the truth was that everything we talked about felt important. "She's a clever girl," my mother would say, her voice carefully neutral. "Too clever, perhaps." I knew what she meant, but I refused to let her words take root. Capitu wasn't just clever, she was brilliant. She saw the world in a way I never could, and she made me believe in possibilities I had never dared to imagine. But even as I defended her in my heart, I began to notice the subtle ways my mother tried to distance us. She would ask me to run errands at inconvenient times, or insist that I spend more time with José Díaz, whose company I found increasingly unbearable. One afternoon, as Capitu and I sat together in the garden, she brought it up. "Your mother doesn't like me?" she said, her voice calm but her eyes searching mine. "She doesn't know you," I replied, though even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. My mother knew Capitu well enough to see what I saw, that she was unlike anyone else. Capitu smiled, a small, sad smile that broke my heart. "She thinks I'm not good enough for you." "That's not true," I said quickly, though I wasn't sure if I was trying to convince her or myself. "She's not wrong, you know," Capitu said, her tone light but her words heavy. "I'm just the daughter of a small-time clerk. You're Bento Santiago." I wanted to tell her that none of that mattered, that I didn't care about class or status or any of the things my mother seemed to hold so dear. But before I could speak, she leaned closer, her eyes locked on mine. "Do you love me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The question took my breath away. I had thought about it 1,000 times, but hearing her say it out loud made it feel real in a way I wasn't prepared for. "Yes," I said, the word escaping before I could think. She smiled then, a smile that lit up the world. "That's all that matters," she said. For a moment I believed her. I believed that love was enough, that we could overcome anything as long as we had each other. But life, as I would soon learn, has a way of testing even the strongest convictions. The first test came not long after that day in the garden. My mother called me into her room, her expression grave. She sat me down and began to speak, her words measured and deliberate. "Bento," she said, "I've been thinking about your future." I knew where this was going, but I said nothing. "You're a young man now," she continued. "It's time for you to start considering what kind of life you want to build, what kind of family you want to have." She paused, waiting for me to respond, but I stayed silent. "I've spoken to José Díaz," she said finally, "and he agrees. It's time for you to think about marriage." The word hit me like a thunderclap. Marriage. To Capitu, it was a dream, a future we had dared to imagine together. But to my mother it was something else entirely, a contract, a duty, a way to secure our family's legacy. "Do you have someone in mind?" she asked, her tone deceptively casual. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words caught in my throat. How could I tell her that the only person I wanted was the one person she would never approve of? I don't know, I stammered. She smiled then, a small, triumphant smile that made my heart sink. "That's all right," she said. "There's no rush. We'll find the right person for you." As I left her room, I felt a weight settle on my chest. I knew what she was planning, and I knew I had to stop it. But how? That night, as I lay awake in bed, I thought about Capitu. I thought about her strength, her determination, and her unshakable belief in us. And for the first time, I began to wonder if love was enough. Love may be enough for the heart, but life demands more. In the next chapter, I'll tell you how Capitu and I fought for our future, and how the world fought back. Stay with me, for the story is only beginning to unfold.